On the surface, the Green River flows peacefully through the forests of Washington state. But beneath its calm waters once lurked the secret of a monster, a man who hunted in silence for over 2 decades. Today on Misterio Channel, we uncover the chilling story of Gary Ridgway, the Green River Killer, one of the most prolific serial murderers in American history. It started in July 1982. Wendy Lee Caulfield, just 16 years old, was found floating in the Green River near Seattle. She had been strangled, an act of cruelty that would soon repeat again and again. In the weeks that followed, the bodies of 4 more women were discovered, all dumped in or near the river. Most of the victims were sex workers or vulnerable young women, including teenage runaways. All had been strangled, their remains abandoned in overgrown forested areas around King County. The killer was quickly dubbed the Green River Killer by the media, based on the location of these early murders. Panic spread. Women were terrified. Police deployed helicopters, dogs, and task forces, but the killer always seemed one step ahead. Gary Leon Ridgway was born on February 18, 1949, in Salt Lake City, Utah, the second of 3 sons. His childhood was troubled. His mother was domineering and controlling. His father, a bus driver, often ranted about sex workers, foreshadowing Ridgway's later obsession. At 16, Ridgway lured a 6-year-old boy into the woods and stabbed him through the liver. The child survived. Despite his low IQ, reportedly in the low 80s, and his dyslexia, Ridgway graduated high school in 1969. He married his teenage sweetheart, joined the Navy, and was deployed to Vietnam, where he frequently visited sex workers and contracted gonorrhea. The marriage ended quickly. So did the next one. His second wife, Marcia Winslow, later revealed he once put her in a chokehold. Despite being intensely religious, he memorized Bible verses, preached to co-workers, and cried during sermons. Ridgway was living a double life. He continued to sleep with sex workers, while fantasizing about killing them. He had a high sex drive. His ex-wives and girlfriends said he demanded sex multiple times a day, sometimes in public, or even in the woods where his victims would later be found. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Ridgway worked as a truck painter at the Kenworth plant in Renton, Washington. He was punctual, polite, and seemed ordinary. No one suspected a thing. His method was cold and calculated. He picked up women along Pacific Highway South, mostly sex workers or runaways, sometimes even showing them photos of his son to earn their trust. After luring them to secluded areas, or even to his home, he would strangle them from behind using his forearm or improvised ligatures like shoelaces or rope. Some murders occurred in his truck, others in the woods. After killing them, he would often return to the bodies days later to commit acts of necrophilia. He left many of the corpses posed or clustered in specific locations, his grim signature. At times, he killed so often he said he lost count. Ridgway had been a suspect as early as 1982, but there wasn't enough evidence to charge him. He even passed a polygraph test. But the investigation continued. As more bodies were discovered, police grew more desperate. Over 40 women had disappeared by the late 1990s. It wasn't until 2001, nearly 20 years later, that forensic science finally caught up. New DNA profiling techniques linked Ridgway to the murders. On November 30, 2001, he was arrested outside the Kenworth truck factory. DNA from 3 victims matched samples found in Ridgway's home and truck. Faced with the death penalty, he agreed to a plea deal. He would confess and help locate more victims in exchange for life in prison without parole. Gary Ridgway ultimately confessed to killing 71 women, though he was officially convicted of 49 murders, making him the second most prolific serial killer in U.S. history by confirmed kills. He described his crimes in chilling detail. In court, families of the victims wept, but Ridgway showed little emotion. Only when one victim's father called him an animal did Ridgway briefly cry, the only time he ever showed remorse. He now spends the rest of his life behind bars at Washington State Penitentiary in Walla Walla. He was a father, a co-worker, a churchgoer. But behind the mask of normalcy lived a man who took dozens of lives. Gary Ridgway reminds us, sometimes, the most terrifying monsters are the ones who blend in best. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. More true crime stories await, only on Misterio channel.